Welcome to English 4E. This is term 1B, class 1, introducing the study guide and K1. Okay, so here's the contact information page. If you want to call into the studio when I'm on air, 1-800-465-7144. If you want to join us by Zoom, nnec.on-ca.zoom.us/j/924-617-3555. I'm in the office most of the day, 1-800-667-3703, and my extension is 2211. You can fax in work to us at 1-800-463-7852. My email is jillian.percy@nnec.ca.on, and my Facebook and my YouTube are both the same title, which is capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. Whenever you hand in work, please send it to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. That way the secretary can always log that you've submitted the work, and it's available then to another teacher if something happened, right? Please include your full name, the course name, the assignment number, and the name. If an assignment asks for both a rough and a good draft, please label them so that I know which is which. Sometimes people feel like it's obvious, but it's not always obvious. Oh, my office hours have changed. I'm currently here every day, 8:30 to 11:30, and then 1:30 to 4:30. If you need to take a photograph of an assignment, please make sure it's not blurry, like check it and make sure that you can read the writing. And then if you can send it directly, sorry, not directly as an email, but send it as an attachment to an email, it's much easier for us to print off and to utilize, okay? So today's work, we are going to review the study guide and the overview of the course, understand the different ways to contact me, understand where to submit your work, ensure that you have all the materials needed to complete the course, understand the marking scheme for the course grade, examine the marking criteria for the report card, review the basic parts of speech, and understand how to complete key question number 1. Okay, so right now you should have received a study guide, units 1 to 4, a copy of the book Where the Rivers Meet. Some people, I think they get the actual copy, but other times people getting like the photocopy. If you did not receive any of those materials, please contact me right away so I can get them shipped up to you as quickly as possible. Where the Rivers Meet is a huge part of Unit 2, and it also shows up significantly on the exam. So sometimes people aren't super happy about doing the novel, but you really do have to do the novel. So make sure you've got it, okay? Unit 1 is elements of written communication. We talk a lot about grammar, journals. I'm going to be adding, I think, some stuff with media in there because this course needs a little bit of media communication. Number 2, understanding literature. It says media there, but really it's a huge novel study for the most part. Unit 3, forms of communication and success in the workplace. So basically a lot of business writing. And then Unit 4 is planning to enter the workforce. That's like creating resumes, cover letters, that kind of thing. And then course review, and there's a final exam. All right, so the unit assignments. So all the assignments from Unit 1 to Unit 4 is going to be worth 70% of your mark. The culminating activity in Unit 4, we put together a kind of a workplace portfolio. That is worth 10% of your marks. That's actually, sounds like it's small, but it's not. It's a huge part of your mark, okay? So doing a good job on that can really, can boost you up basically almost an entire grade. And then the final exam is worth 20%. And we'll talk about that later. Occasionally, I have students who may be in a place where it's difficult to find someone to supervise the exam. Like not everybody has a learning center. If you're in that situation, I may already know, but if not, let me know so that we may be able to help. If we're unable to find someone, I will just offer an alternative assessment instead. All right. Each unit in this course has a different focus. Unit 1 focuses very intensely on parts of speech, crafting a good sentence, and just learning how to begin to use good paragraph structure. A lot of short, quick assignments. Unit 2 is focusing on the chapter on the novel Where the Rivers Meet. There's questions to answer about each chapter and reflection pieces to write about selected chapters. Unit 3 focuses on the business writing and the different forms of writing in the workplace, plus we create a business proposal. And then Unit 4 focuses on writing that will help you get a job, filling out job applications, writing cover letters, creating a resume, practice answering interview questions. That last unit is pretty short, but the assignments are all worth a lot. And then the culminating activity, as I said, is putting together the portfolio of your work. Okay. So I'm going through this stuff just because it's in your study guide and I want you to kind of understand what it is. So one of the things that Ontario does is that has kind of like two parts to report card. And one is what we traditionally think of as our marks based on our assignments. But the other part is what we call learning skills. And it's kind of more like how you conduct yourself in a classroom or in this case, in an independent study environment, okay? Not all of these learning skills translate to independent study. For example, here we've got collaboration, but since we're not really working with other people that much, collaboration isn't really a huge part of this course. This does get recorded on your final report card, but it doesn't come as a mark. It comes as like an N for needs improvement, or S for satisfactory, or G for good, or E for excellent. So responsibility. This is the hugest thing. I think if you're an independent learning student, you have to be very responsible. You need to make sure you're getting your assignments done, you get things done on the proper timeline, that you take responsibility for and manage your own behavior. Organization, this is also, I think, pretty key. You have to devise and organize yourself a plan and a process for completing the works in the task, establish your priorities and manage time to complete tasks and goals, and then use information correctly. This is, I think, a huge one for a lot of our adult learners. A lot of you have families and you're working full-time and you're taking this course. So if you need any kind of help with that and want me to kind of give you a possible schedule, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. Independent work, independently monitor, assess, and revise plans to complete tasks and meet goals. Uses your class time appropriately to complete tasks and follows instructions with minimal supervision. Now, I want to point out, even if you are in the independent learning class, that does not mean that you cannot call me. I am always available to discuss stuff. People call me up on the phone, or they Facebook me, or they send me email. If they're in town for medical or they live in town, sometimes they drop by the office. So don't feel that independent learning means you're not allowed to ask for help, because it definitely does not mean that. By all means, please talk to me if you're struggling to understand an assignment or don't quite get what to do next. Initiative. Again, I think if anyone's taking this course, they generally are showing strong initiative. Basically, you're looking for and acting on new ideas and opportunities to learn. You are willing to try new things and take risks. You demonstrate curiosity and interest in learning. You approach new tasks with a positive attitude. And then one they have here is recognize and advocates appropriately for the rights of self and others. That's kind of more a thing in the classroom where they're wanting to make sure people protect each other, right? And speak up for each other. Self-regulation, this isn't something that I get to see. You're kind of the one that's going to be more aware of it, that you're setting your own goals, that you're seeking clarification and assistance when needed, right? That's a good thing, okay? That you can assess and reflect critically on your own strengths, needs, and interests, that you identify learning opportunities, choices, and strategies to meet personal needs and achieve goals, that you persevere and make an effort when responding to challenges. Okay, so this is the overall achievement chart. This is basically applies to all of English courses in Ontario in grade 11 and grade 12. And they kind of organize the courses by kind of four main concepts. And the first one is knowledge and understanding. Okay, so when I am looking at assigning a grade or doing marks, this is definitely a key spot I take a look at. They want to make sure that you understand the forms of text, like the format for a novel versus a play versus a poem, conventions, terminologies, and that you have like reading and writing strategies. That you show good understanding of the information, ideas, concepts, and themes that we read about, that you understand the relationship between facts, ideas, concepts, and themes, that you understand and use with effect rhetorical, or what they sometimes call stylistic devices in literary and informational texts. Hang on a sec. Thinking and inquiry, okay? Critical and creative writing skills. I always think of critical thinking skills as a lot to do with when you're reading, understanding what you're reading, and then creative thinking skills, I think, have a lot to do with when we do our writing and respond to things. Reflecting on things, analyzing, hypothesizing, explaining things. And then your inquiry skills. There are a few little research projects where you have to, think of your own questions, plan stuff out, select your resources, analyze what you read, interpret it, summarize it, all those kind of skills. Then we have communication. Communication is kind of the writing part of the course, right? How you communicate your information and your ideas. Do you have, is it logically organized? Is it clear what you mean? Are you able to communicate for different audiences and for different purposes? Are you able to change your style or your choice of language? And are you able to write in a wide variety of formats, essays, narratives, debates, poems? Yep, and then application. Application is, there's a lot of application, right? So partly about the conventions. If you're writing, do you understand good grammar, good usage, good spelling, punctuation? Application of oral communication and media convention techniques. So if we're having a conversation on the phone, are you able to make your ideas clear? If you're creating like a media report, do you understand how to use that? Reading strategies, how to apply those, understanding how to use the writing process, application of technology. That's kind of like looking at ethical use, how do you use tools and software. It kind of goes when we're creating media projects a fair bit. And then making connections between English and other subjects, or English and yourself, or between one text and the other. I'm not gonna go back. Generally for high school, we don't put down letter grades, we put down numerical grades, right? So anything above a 50 and above is a pass. And the goal is normally that we try and get students between 70 and 79, because that shows that you understood kind of most of what we read and are able to write with a fair degree of ability, okay? This is the last page in our guide. And like I said, it's just the overview of the course and the marking scheme. It also has a lot of information about how to contact me. So if you're not sure how to do that, you can always check that out too. Okay, this is a layout of Unit 1. This is going to take us almost 3 to 4 weeks to cover. There's a lot here. This is a very grammar-heavy unit, which a lot of students find challenging. So I'm going to be offering some alternate assignment choices this term that hopefully you might enjoy a little bit more and yet are still going to meet the curriculum expectations. You will need to tune in to hear these alternate assignments, as they are still stuff I'm designing. The original assignments are always going to be accepted. That's fine. I just feel like this is a lot of grammar, and maybe a bit more grammar than what we really need in a course. So, okay, the first unit looks like this. Check that it says 2024 to 2025. This course has been mildly revised since last year and is going to undergo a few revisions as I teach it. You want to make sure you have the most updated version. And as you can see on the front, it tells you some of the ways to contact me. Like I said, this one focuses on the building blocks of writing, understanding and identifying parts of speech, understanding and identifying the parts of a sentence, simple, compound, and complex sentences, sentence-verb agreement, how to write sentences, and how to write paragraphs. Okay, table of contents. So up top is kind of the stuff we've really sort of overgone. When they talk about activities, they're kind of meaning that, hey, here's a concept or a skill that we want you to have. There's often more than one assignment connected to an activity. If you've taken other courses with us, it kind of correlates to the idea of a lesson, okay? In these activities, there will be things referred to as a key question. And normally there's a bunch of explanatory material right before it that explains how to do the question. And sometimes people skip over that part and they just go right to the assignment. And then they're like, oh, wait, I don't know what this means or this means or this means. If you have that happen, go back and read all the information that came before, because normally I explain it in those pages, okay? Also, of course, I do go really in depth in these classes on those concepts. And if you want to join in and ask me some questions, I'd be happy to answer questions. So you should be able to complete assignments successfully as long as you read all the stuff, not just the assignment, because the assignment might only be like a sentence or two. Okay, so and this says, welcome to English grade 12, workplace preparation. This full credit course emphasizes the consolidation of literacy, communication, and critical and creative thinking skills necessary for success in the workplace and in daily life. You will analyze informational, graphic, and literacy texts and create oral, written, and media texts in a variety of forms for workplace-related and practical purposes. An important focus will be on using language accurately and organizing ideas and information coherently. The course is intended to prepare you for the workplace and active citizenship. Now, what they mean by that is this is not the course you would take if you're planning to go on to college. If you are planning to go on to college, let us know because we can switch you to the other course. But a lot of our students are already out in the workforce and they're just wanting to finish high school. Sometimes there's a promotion. Sometimes your work has just decided, no, everybody's got to get this finished, and that's fine, right? We already talked about the course contents. You must successfully complete the key questions for each unit and complete the final exam. Talked about that already. Yep. Okay, that we've already discussed. All right, elements of written communication. With this unit, you will understand the importance of effective writing, especially as it applies in the workplace. You will complete a variety of assignments pertaining to the parts of speech, spelling, grammar, and punctuation in individual sentences, and whole paragraphs. The writing process will be examined and its use in producing good quality pieces of writing. And then for a culminating activity for this entire course, not course, sorry, this unit, you're gonna end up writing a short story. That's kind of interesting. All right. So now this gets to the really dry part of the course, and I'm so sorry, but I kind of have to cover this stuff because when people are writing, if there's problems with their writing, and I try and say, well, you need to fix this grammar concept, but I haven't taught it, then it's gonna be pretty hard for you to do. So even though this stuff is really dry, and some of you may already know all this and be like, oh my gosh, why is she going over this? Not everybody does. For one thing, grammar kind of wasn't taught very much recently. For some reason, it was one of those things that kind of fell out of favor, and people were like, oh, just write how you speak. But that's not really true. We actually write very differently than how we speak. So you may not have ever been taught some of this grammar. I don't know. It really depends on your age and what your teachers were like. Okay, so first we're going to talk about parts of speech. Parts of speech are types or categories of words that can be identified and serve a purpose in a sentence. Now, I don't like that definition. That's the one that's in the course, but parts of speech are telling you what job is this word doing in a sentence. And some words might have more than one job. So nouns, their job is to name things, people, places, things, or ideas. And there's two main kinds of nouns. There's common nouns, which are like generic, like a girl, a town. And then there's proper nouns. That's like they get more specific, like the girl named Maria or Pickle Lake. Some examples of nouns: persons, things like sister, Mr. Green, principal, nurse, students. Places: Sioux Lookout, a bridge, river, downtown, mountain. Things would also include animals, by the way: pencil, table, phone, stove, tree. Ideas or concepts, things like freedom, hatred, government, independence, love. Nouns can be anywhere in a sentence. Sometimes people think that they're only going to be at the first part of a sentence, but that isn't true. They can be the subject of a sentence and perform the main action. Like if I say Nancy swam, Nancy is the noun. Hang on, I'm going to pull up my pen if I can. Hang on. So this is kind of new. I'm just trying to play with this a little bit. Okay, so Nancy is my noun there. Nouns can be the object in a sentence and receive the action. If I say he threw the ball is what's getting thrown. Nouns can also perform other jobs in a sentence, but we're going to go more into that later. Many sentences will have more than one noun in them, okay? This is important because we're going to do some assignments on this. Can you find the nouns in the sentences below? So this is kind of our simple version, and then I'm going to get a little bit more complicated, okay? If I say the leaves are falling from the tree in our yard, where are the nouns? Well, if you see the words the, a, or an, that's a really strong clue because those often appear in front of nouns. So leaves would be a noun. Now, if it said the green leaves, green would just be an adjective, okay? Are falling from the tree. Tree is a noun. In our yard, yard is a noun. So leaves and tree are things, a yard would be a place. Cars zoomed down the busy street. Cars is our first noun. Zoom, that's our verb, down the busy street. Street is our next noun. That would be a place. The doctor said he would do the surgery at his office. So doctor's a person, that's a noun. He would do the surgery, surgery's, I guess, would that be a thing? A thing or an idea, maybe a concept. At his office. Office is also a noun because it's a place. The old haunted house at the top of the hill had lights shining through the windows. So house is a noun. The top is a place. The hill, another place. Had lights, lights is a thing, shining through the windows. There's a lot of nouns there. Freedom is a key component in democracy. Okay, so freedom is your idea, and it's a key component. A component would be like a concept. In democracy, democracy is another concept. That's a very idea-heavy sentence. All right, let me see if can I go on? Okay, hang on. Let's see. Trying to think how to end the pointer there. We do it now? There we go, good, yay. All right, what's a pronoun? Pronouns are words that can take the place of a noun. Now, sometimes people get these confused because they sound an awful lot like a noun because they're people, right? A lot of them are anyways, but they aren't. They take the place of a noun. So some examples would be things like I, he, she, his, her, our, we, they, it. So let's say I was writing a paragraph about a famous singer. I don't need to keep writing the singer's name in every single sentence. Like if I said Taylor Swift this, Taylor Swift that, Taylor Swift this other thing, it becomes kind of tedious and almost annoying to hear the same name over and over again. So then I start to use pronouns like he or she, or if it was like a building, like it or something. So for example, if I said Taylor Swift is immensely popular with all sorts of age groups, and I'm still talking about the same person, I can just use the word she for the next sentence. She is constantly in the public eye. Now, you do have to be careful with your pronouns that it's obvious who the pronoun is referring to, and that's called the antecedent. So in this case, Taylor Swift is the antecedent for the pronoun she. But if I was writing about a band that had multiple different female stars, I might not be able to use the pronoun she. I might have to write the person's name for each one, because otherwise you might be getting confused as to which she I'm talking about, okay? Verbs. Verbs are words that express action of some kind or being. Okay, that's a very basic description. We're going to go into that in more detail on another day, but things like run, sing, laugh, is, are, and were. Participles are a special type of verb that's formed from a verb that's been modified. Things like running, ran, singing, sang, kind of means like a special type of a verb. Verbs can also express a condition or state of being, often using the verb to be. Some examples would be things like am, are, is, has been, have been, had been, was, and were. These are often used when you're describing the condition of the noun in a sentence. For if I say the little girl was cold and hungry, sometimes people are confused because there's like, well, there's no action there. But that's why it's not just action, it can also be describing the condition of something. So what condition is the little girl in? Well, she's cold and hungry. She was cold and hungry, so past tense as well. What condition is the street in? The street is deserted. So these state of being nouns are also count. It isn't always just actions, okay? Adjectives. Adjectives are a word that describes a noun. So formal is a description of a type of report. Colorful is a description of a type of brochure. Adjectives often come right before the noun they're describing, like we have right here, but sometimes they come after a verb that shows the state of being, just like we saw in the last slide. If I was talking about the tree, I could say the strong tree, but I could also say the tree is strong and tall. It kind of just depends on the focus, right? Adjectives can tell you all sorts of things. They can tell you the age, the size, the color, the origin, the material, the number, the quality or the opinion, the type or the function of a person, place, thing, or idea. Adverbs. Adverbs and adjectives kind of have very similar types of jobs. Adverbs describe verbs. They can also describe adjectives and other adverbs. So carefully communicated, that's an adverb describing how that person communicated. Accurately summarize. Accurately is an adverb describing how they want you to summarize. Adverbs can come in several places in a sentence. It can come right before or right after the verb it is describing. He suddenly fell. Suddenly is an adverb describing how he fell. She whispered quietly. Quietly is describing how that person whispered. It can also come right before an adjective or another adverb that it's describing. So if I say he was extremely careful, careful is actually an adjective. Extremely is describing that adjective. How careful is he? Extremely careful. Same thing here. We've got mom very gently covered the baby with a blanket. So gently is an adverb already, but she's doing it very gently. So it's an adverb describing another adverb. This is another one that's important because a lot of times in school, they only tell you that adverbs describe verbs. And if that's all you knew, then you might miss some of the adverbs in some of our assignments. Okay, prepositions. Prepositions are a word that shows how a noun or a pronoun is related or connected to another word in a sentence. And we'll talk more about that later on, but examples would be things like on, under, over, beside, at, between, or near. They usually are showing relationships of time, place, direction, agency, cause, measurement, instruments, or tools. So if I say the army marched over the bridge, I'm connecting the word bridge to the rest of the sentence, and I'm telling you the location, right? Where's the bridge? Well, it's what the army's marching over. She completed the painting with a palette knife. So I'm connecting the word a palette knife to the rest of the sentence using the word with, and with is showing you what instrument it was done with. He wanted to buy a pound of butter. And this is a measurement one, right? I'm using the word of to show, connect the word pound to the word butter. Conjunctions. Conjunctions are a word that joins two or more words or groups of words, like phrases, clauses, and sentences together, okay? I have here that there's two main types of conjunctions. There actually is a third one we'll talk about later, but anyway, some examples are things like and, but, or, however, then, so, and also. There are two main types of conjunctions. Coordinating conjunctions join two simple and complete sentences or clauses, right? They sometimes call them an independent clause because they can be a sentence all by themselves. So if I said he loved going to the movies and he liked playing baseball, and is your conjunction joining the two sentences. He wanted to go shopping, but he was out of money. But is the conjunction joining those two clauses. There are also subordinating conjunctions, and they will join an independent clause that could stand on its own with a dependent clause, which can't stand on its own. A dependent clause does have a subject and a verb, but it's incomplete. It doesn't make sense by itself. So some examples of that would be like, I would go to the movies if I had some money. And if is your subordinating conjunction. She liked the new boy, even though he was very quiet. Even though is a subordinating conjunction phrase, right? It's not always just one word. All right, phrases and clauses. Hopefully you've talked about this before, but I will come back to this because it's kind of a key concept when you're writing good sentences. A phrase is just a group of words and it's doing a single part of speech. It does not have both a noun and a verb, although it might have one or the other. Using phrases effectively can help you clarify your meaning and create variety in your writing. So for example, if I say writing a proposal, that's not a full sentence because I don't know who or what is doing the proposal. So a clause, however, is different. A clause is a group of words that does contain both a subject and a verb. Clauses are basically the building blocks of sentences, and there's two main types: main, or what we sometimes call an independent clause, and that is a group of words that make sense as a sentence all on its own and has a subject and a verb. So if I said, I went to the store, I is your subject, and went to the store, went is your verb. A subordinate clause is sometimes called a dependent clause. And it's a group of words that does contain a subject and verb, but it doesn't make sense on its own. And it must be linked to a main clause that does make sense. So if I said, your order will arrive on Friday if you place it today, your order will arrive on Friday is a main clause. If you place it today is a subordinate clause. If you place it today, it couldn't stand on its own. It doesn't make sense. Here's another example. Although he wanted to come to the concert, he couldn't get the time off work. Although he wanted to come to the concert is your subordinate or dependent clause because it doesn't make sense on its own. And then it's connected to he couldn't get the time off work, which is your main clause. Simple sentences, sentence types. Okay. There are several sentence types. We're going to talk about all of them at some point. Simple sentences have one main clause with a subject and a predicate that express a complete thought. Compound sentences have two or more independent clauses that are joined by a conjunction or a semicolon. There's only certain conjunctions that can be used that way: for and nor, but, or, yet, and so. Those are the only ones that work for a compound sentence. Complex sentences have one main independent clause and one subordinate clause that we just talked about, joined by the subordinating conjunction. There are a lot of subordinate conjunctions. Some common ones are things like if, though, even though, because, however, since, therefore. And then there's also something called a compound complex sentence. That's when there's two main clauses and one or more subordinate clauses. Those are fairly complicated, and we're not going to try and worry about writing those deliberately at this point in time. Okay. Yep, we talked about that. For a sentence, the subject is telling you who or what the sentence is about. It's usually a noun or a pronoun. The predicate is the verb plus any of the words that are connected to the verb. So if I said the old man walked carefully up the stairs, man is my subject, Walked is my verb, and the whole predicate is walked carefully up the stairs. The snowstorm is my subject. Blanketed is my verb, and blanketed the ground in white swirls is my whole predicate. Other important terms. Okay, we are going to talk about these a little bit more as I go along. Gerund, infinitive, modifier. A gerund is basically the ing form of a verb, like analyze becomes analyzing, and you just take the root word of the verb and add ing. So things like hating, growing, sailing, changing, tracking, fishing, writing, and washing. An infinitive is the verb form with the word to in front, like to climb, to add, to swim, to believe, to find. This is sort of because this is something other languages do, and so we use it as well. A modifier refers to a word or a phrase that gives more information about a subject or verb or object in a clause. Adjectives and adverbs are the main modifiers. Okay, key question number 1. Identifying the parts of speech. This is worth 5 marks. You're going to read the following paragraph and then identify the underlined word. You can use lined paper or the computer for your responses, okay? So I'm going to read it and then we're going to try and kind of do a little bit of a practice with this. It was a sunny morning in late March when Terry and his friend Joe left Kingfisher Lake by snowmobile to travel to Wanneman Lake. They quickly covered the distance between the two communities and hurried to the home of Corey, an old buddy of theirs. Corey works as a filing clerk at the nursing station in Wanneman Lake and regularly writes memos and emails during the week. He also assists with developing monthly reports. Since this was a Sunday, however, they would have time to spend together. They talked and laughed for about 5 hours. Then Jerry and Joe returned home, happy but exhausted. Okay, so the parts of speech you need to look for are nouns, pronouns, adjectives, verbs, adverbs, and prepositions. Also conjunctions. There are no interjections, and we also don't use articles for this one. Okay, I'm going to quickly, hang on a second. Okay. For this question, please don't try and write the part of speech on the paragraph. People will do that. It's really crowded. I can't actually read it. Take a lined paper, list each underlined word down the side, and then next to it, write what part of speech it is. So for the first sentence, we've got, it was a sunny morning in late March when Terry and his friend Joe left Kingfisher Lake by snowmobile to travel to Wanneman Lake. So sunny, okay? Sunny is describing the word morning, so it is an adjective. Morning is a noun, and so we write that. Late March. Late is an adjective describing March. Okay, so late. Oh, hang on a second. Sorry, still playing with this a little bit. Okay, there we go. Okay, so late is a type of adjective. March is a noun. Terry. Terry's a name, so it's another noun. And I would write the word noun here, right? Sorry, this is hard to do with a little tiny pointer, right? There we go. Okay. His friend. What is his? It's not a noun. It's not an adjective. It's not a verb. It's not an adverb. It is a pronoun, right? Oh yeah, yep, it's taking the place of a noun. His friend. What's friend? Friend is another noun. Wanneman Lake. Wanneman Lake is one word, right? It's describing a place. So if it's describing a place, what kind of part of speech is it? It's a noun as well. So you can see there are definitely a lot of nouns here, okay? See if it will let me. Here we go. All right. One important point to keep in mind, sometimes students have the idea that a certain word can only have one part of speech. And that is true for some words. But a part of speech is describing a job that the word is doing in a sentence. And some words can do more than one job. So for example, if I look at the word bat, he bought a new baseball bat at the store. And in that sentence, the word bat is acting as a noun, and it is the name of an object, right? You can picture it. But the word bat can do other jobs in a sentence as well. Here are some other examples. Our top player bats a home run almost every game. In this sentence, the word bats, it's acting as a verb, right? It's telling you what he's doing. He bats a home run. So that's an action. So even though it's the same word, it's doing a different job. If I said the little boy is going to batting practice, in that case, batting is an adjective describing what type of practice he's going to. So because of this issue, when you're looking at a word, don't just assume, oh, I know that word, it's always a verb. Make sure you're reading it in the context of the sentence to make sure you're looking at what job it is doing in that sentence. One key thing I've seen this with is where a student looks at a word ending and uses that as a key to decide what part of speech a word is. And this can work sometimes, but other times a certain ending might be used with two different parts of speech. So for example, the ending S can be added to a singular noun to create a plural noun. One train can become two trains. So sometimes people will see that S and assume that if it's an S, it automatically must be a noun. But S is also used at the end of singular verbs when it is in the third person singular. So first person singular is I train for the race. Second person singular is you train for the race. But then when I get to third person singular, he trains for the race. She trains for the race. The student trains for the race. So in that case, the S doesn't mean that it's plural. It just means that it's a special person form of the verb. Okay, I'm just gonna check my time really quick. No. Okay, sorry, I had to check real quick because there used to be a clock across the way and it's disappeared, so I wasn't sure what time it was. All right, if you see the word trains in a sentence, you need to stop and think about what job is it doing. If it's naming an object, then it's a noun. If it's describing an action, then it's a verb. There are a lot of nouns that can be used as a verb. And here's some examples. Things like plan, mark, contest, tip, skate, bloom, stamp, slice, float, act, nail, dump, jam, dip, run, stop, spring, and light. So for example, if I had the word plan, just quickly kind of using it as a noun, I could say, the plan was to rob the bank. Okay, I use it as a noun there. Or I could use it as an action. So what could we be planning? We need to plan the birthday party. So there, I'm using it as an action, something we're doing. All right. So let's look at the underlined word in the sentence and you decide, is it acting as a noun or is it acting as a verb, as an action? Can I pull this up? Hang on a second. Let me see if I can just kind of really quickly grab. I think I can. Okay. I am going to the garbage dump. Okay. Is dump a name or is it an action? Well, it's a place, right? Garbage dump. That means it's acting as a noun. Okay. You can dump the clothes in the bed and I will fold them. Okay, well, is dump here describing a place, a name, or is it an action? Well, you can picture it. They're dumping it, right? They're upending the basket. So that is a verb. A mountain goat can spring up the hill with ease. Okay, is it an action or is it a noun? Well, The mountain goat is doing, he's springing. That's his action. So here it's talking about a verb. Okay. Spring is just around the corner. Okay, is that an action or is it a noun? It's a noun. They're naming the season of spring, right? So when you're looking at it, you don't want to just think, oh, dump. I know I can just picture that. It's an action. You're right, it can be. Is it an action in that sentence? Okay, so make sure you check. All right, I'm talking about this because it does come up. There is another example of a word format that could be either a verb or a special type of noun called a gerund. And a lot of times, if we see a word ending with ing, we just assume automatically, oh, that's a verb. And a lot of time we'd be right. If I say, I am running to the store, that's a verb. The fish is swimming away from the boat, it's a verb. The student is writing a test, definitely a verb. But sometimes we want to talk about a certain action as a concept or like name the activity. And in those cases, the verb suddenly becomes a noun. So if I said the girl is running fast, I'm talking about what she's doing. So that's the action, that's a verb. But if I say running is a great way to get exercise, no one's doing it. I'm describing that activity. I'm giving it a name. So in that case, it's acting as a noun. All right, there are basically 6 different types of gerunds, and it's not super important that you know the names or the types. I'm just trying to show you some of the ways that a gerund can hide, because it can be a little bit tricky or confusing, and I want you to know, both when you're reading and when you're writing, how to use it. Generally, like I said, if you're wondering if an ing verb is acting as a verb or if it's acting as a noun, think about, is it describing someone or something doing an action? Is it an action word? Or is it naming something? So here it can be a subject, like running is my newest hobby. And in that case, running is my, yep. Hang on, I want to see if I can switch to that. Running, yes, awesome. Running is a noun. The gerund can be the subject complement. That just means it comes after a linking verb and it gives us more information about the subject. It complements or completes the subject. My most common form of exercise is running. So we know we're talking about exercise. What type of exercise? Running. The gerund can be a direct object, which means it comes after an action verb and receives the action. I love running. What do I love? Running. She's not doing the running. She's talking about the concept of running. The gerund can be an indirect object, which comes between an action verb and a direct object. Like if I say, my daughter gave running a try, right? A try is my direct object, running is my indirect object. The gerund can be an object complement, which is a noun or an adjective that describes or renames the object. I built my endurance running. Running is, I guess, kind of describing how I built the endurance. The gerund can also be the object of a preposition. I bought that new jacket for running. So again, I'm not doing the running, I'm talking about the activity of running. Does that make sense? I'm hoping. It's a little bit confusing, I know. Okay, so here we're going to look at a few practice sentences and decide, is the word action acting as an action verb or a naming noun? He won a gold medal in swimming. Okay, so for this one, this is a noun, okay? Because he's not doing the swimming, that's what he won the medal in. Hiking is my favorite way to spend a Saturday afternoon. Hiking is definitely the subject of the sentence. It is the noun here. The little boy is jumping over the puddles. Okay, he's clearly doing it, so it is a verb. They are playing outside. Okay, playing is clearly the action. They're doing it. The whole point of summer is camping. They're not doing the camping. They're talking about the concept of camping, so it's a noun. Susan was typing the letter as fast as she could. Typing is a verb. She's doing it. Mom turned cooking into a reward for good behavior. Now, this is a little bit confusing because we have a verb right there, so it might look like a verb phrase. But in this case, cooking is a noun because she turned the action of cooking into a reward. She's not actually cooking herself. She's talking about the concept of cooking. Okay. All right. So there are about, I think, like 36 words to label with the correct part of speech in that paragraph. If you're not sure of which one is, take a look back at the definitions for the different parts of the speech and pick whatever seems most likely. You don't have to be 100% sure in order to give an answer. Please hand this one in right away when you're finished. That lets me know how many students are actively doing the work in the course, okay? Sometimes I have students want to hang on to things and like do all the assignments first. But then if there's a problem where you didn't understand something, I can't help you. So if you didn't understand nouns, for example, I can help you right now before you ever move on. Or if you didn't understand it and you hand me in 20 assignments, now you've got 20 assignments that are confused about, and you're going to have to go back and fix that. So that's way more work. It's way easier just hand me things in as you go along, and then I can help you as you go along. And that almost always improves people's marks. Almost always. All right. If you found any of this confusing or you want to learn more about parts of speech, there are some ways you can do it. You can look at Schoolhouse Rock videos on YouTube, such as this one. I used to be able to play these, but YouTube's kind of cracking down and doesn't let me play videos anymore. You can also check out Khan Academy, okay? They have a lot of videos on grammar. Some of those videos will be on YouTube. You can also join Khan Academy for free. You may have to make an account, but they don't usually ask you to pay for it. So here I made myself a quick little account. I told them I wanted to learn about grammar, and it gave me a bunch of little videos on how to do stuff. And usually there'll be like little exercises that go with it. So if you were confused, you can always call me, but you can also do this to kind of do a little bit of independent learning on your own. And then at that point, we have learned everything for today's class. If you tune in tomorrow, same time, 3 o'clock, we will tackle the next couple of assignments. Thank you so much for showing up, and let me know if you need help with anything, okay?